Coming up, the next Prime Minister will be chosen by 0.2% of the UK population. An estimated 170,000 Conservative Party members, overwhelmingly male, white and over 55. So much for the idea that we live in a representative parliamentary democracy. And despite the visual diversity of their binary choice, a female candidate versus a male of Asian heredity, there's little diversity in the hard Brexit, small government ideology of these two ministers who are both partly responsible for the economic and social mess the country is in right now. Stay tuned. If you enjoy watching my videos, please give this one a like and spread the word by sharing a link on your favoured social media platforms. If you subscribe, you can also hit the bell icon to be notified of each new video I release. So the two candidates who made it through to the final round of this perverse game show are one, a Chancellor who has given us the highest taxes in my lifetime and a budget deficit of £36 billion in the last year, and two, a Trade Secretary who's presided over a UK trade deficit of £78 billion over the last year, with a record trade deficit in the first quarter of 2022. These were two of the most senior cabinet ministers in office while, in the words of another senior minister, Michael Gove, some parts of the state are simply not functioning. The hard Brexit they both now enthusiastically support is unravelling. This is a video of the queue at the approach to the Channel Tunnel taken this week. As a result of the actions of Ministers Truss and Sunak, the poor are getting poorer. Public services across the board are close to collapse, and the whole country feels as though it's returning to its pre-European community status as the sick man of Europe. Both Truss and Sunak are complicit in this national decline, and they're setting out policies that will see us continue on this path. Both profess to be low-tax, small-state Conservatives, very much on the right wing of their party. The only difference may be that Sunak understands he has to hold off on tax cuts while inflation is soaring. Because, to quote Richard Murphy, Professor of Accounting Practice at Sheffield University and someone you should definitely follow on Twitter, the main role of tax is to reclaim the money that government spends into the economy to make sure that inflation is controlled. Truss tells us that cutting tax will cut inflation, which is the opposite of the truth. Why does she believe this? Because she was told so by fringe economist Patrick Minford. You know him. He was the guy who claimed Brexit could generate an extra £135 billion in extra income for the UK, whereas in fact the Office of Budget Responsibility has assessed Brexit is actually leading to around £80 billion in lost income. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not favouring Sunak necessarily. I mean, after all, the end goal of both candidates is a low-tax, small-state economy, with public services shrunk and privatised or contracted out. It's just that Truss's route to get there will provide the added gift of hyperinflation. And it's her that, according to recent polls, is odds-on favourite to be our next Prime Minister, leading Sunak almost 2-1 amongst Conservative Party members. Unless the economy somehow makes a miraculous recovery, she'll be the one that leads the Tories to a massive election defeat next time round. She's threatening a trade war with Europe, she's pledging immediate tax cuts, which will stoke inflation, and she's been spouting a bizarre plan to reschedule Britain's debt, as if we were Argentina, Zimbabwe, or even the Weimar Republic come to that. At the same time as the Bank of America is saying that the British pound is taking on emerging market characteristics thanks to the fallout from Brexit. Her only hope would appear to be a short-lived pre-election boom, engineered through throwing public money at key marginal seats and those Tory demographics most likely to vote, much as this government has been doing, allocating £3.6 billion from the Towns Fund to favour key marginals and target seats. Truss would also need to manipulate the Bank of England to prevent it raising interest rates to control inflation. All of this Truss plan would be bad news for anyone British who is not insulated from these economic shocks through holding offshore investments. But Sunak's alternative of record high taxation and an austerity mindset is unlikely to be of any greater benefit to ordinary people, by which I mean the 99% of us who would suffer under his premiership. Sorry if this all sounds a bit like doom and gloom, and perhaps it's time to lighten the mood. I'm actually feeling a little bit happier about British politics than I have for a long time, as the Tory civil war intensifies with repeated blue-on-blue attacks, negative press briefings from each candidate's team about the opposing candidate, and leaks of damaging information about both Truss and Sunak. The more personal it gets, the more I'm loving it. Bring on the popcorn. I think we're already at the stage where either of them would refuse to serve in a cabinet position if the other became the Prime Minister. So that'll be the first Tory panic after the leadership result. The first of many, as the squabble between these two and their respective camps will continue, aided and abetted by the narcissistic blonde scarecrow sledging the new leader from the backbenches. The divisions between the two candidates and their respective support groups are now set in stone and are likely to be on full display up to the next election. Never a good look for a political party. In my opinion, there are two primary reasons why this particular Conservative /UKIP British National Party government was elected in the first place. One, the vacuous and deceitful use of the three-word slogan, "Get Brexit Done," and two, the highly effective, successful media vilification of Jeremy Corbyn, whether you think it justified or not. Next time around, the Conservatives have Starmer, whose utter blandness has made it difficult for the media to portray as a dangerous bogeyman. And Brexit, so they tell us, is done. And even though it isn't anywhere near done, the majority of the electorate think it is. And with Starmer's total surrender to a fantastical make Brexit work Tory view of Brexit, it won't be an electoral issue except in the so-called blue wall, where it may see the Tory pro-EU vote leak away to the Lib Dems. On both Brexit and Corbyn, the two propellants of Johnson are now exhausted, and neither turgid Truss or shiny Sunak are the answer to this Tory problem. With Truss currently 5-2 on with the bookmakers, which means you'd have to stake 50 quid to win 20. And as the bookmakers are usually far more accurate than any pollster, it seems likely that it's Truss who will be the next Prime Minister, thanks to her overwhelming support from the Tory party grassroots membership, and also thanks to the support of the publicly funded so-called European Research Group, the ERG, made up of Tory MPs on the hard right of the party, your ludicrous Rees-Moggs, your underqualified Bravermans, Culture Wars Badenochs, and your wannabe Brexit hardmen like Steve Baker. It was they who orchestrated the campaign to push Truss into the final two candidates to be put on parade for the Tory party membership to admire their fetlocks and shiny flanks. Dominic Cummings has mocked the Tory hard right for this, tweeting that it was totally on brand for ERG to back a truly useless Remainer who did nothing in government except gabble with the hacks, because she's reassuringly mad behind the eyes. Now, although I don't believe a single word Cummings says, his entertainment value cannot be denied. He's also claimed that Boris Johnson and his team have been working hard to sabotage Sunak's campaign and to support the Truss campaign because, and I quote, he knows Truss is as mad as a box of snakes and is thinking, there's a chance she blows, there's another contest, and I can return. Well, if Johnson really thinks that, perhaps he's as mad as a box of snakes himself, or, more likely, it's just his narcissistic personality disorder. But despite Johnson's disingenuous support, Truss does her best to sabotage her own campaign. In the last couple of days, she got lost trying to leave the room after a press briefing. Here's the video. And the best bit is her own staffers by the door sniggering, finding it hilarious that their boss couldn't find the very door through which she'd entered only minutes previously. In fact, while we're talking about Truss, here's some more snippets for you to enjoy, remembering that this is probably our next Prime Minister.
We import 2/3 of our cheese. That is a disgrace.
The Irish TSOC.
We will be taking into account our high standards to make sure our farmers are undermined.
In December, I'll be in Beijing, opening up new pork markets.
They've now got patrol dogs who are barking, which helps deter drones.
You had a plan in 2014 to build 200,000 new starter homes. That was 5 years ago. How many did you build?
Well, there haven't been as many starter homes as we would have liked.
How many did you build?
I don't have the exact numbers for you.
Well, it's easy to remember. It's 0. You built none.
And just this week, after making it to the final 2, Truss tweeted, "I'm ready to hit the ground from day one." Splat, for both her and the Tory party. Although I feel that if she's aiming at the ground, there's a good chance she might miss it. She can't master Twitter, yet this is the person most likely to have her finger on our nuclear button. In my opinion, she is a far more ridiculous, cartoony figure than shiny Sunak, who I consider a slightly greater danger of reinstalling a Tory government at the next election. His campaign now seems to be based on claims that he is the only candidate who can beat Keir Starmer and Labour at the next general election. I found it very interesting that he singles out just a mention of Labour. No grand claim there that he can beat a progressive alliance of Labour, the Lib Dems, the Greens, Plaid and the SNP, because he knows he can't. I mean, for a start, he has no idea about the working class.
I have friends who are aristocrats, I have friends who are upper class, I have friends who are, working class, but not working class.
Rishi Sunak, no friends from the working class, or should I say, Rishi Sunak, no friend of the working class. Privately educated at Winchester College, exactly the same as Truss, he graduated from Oxford with a degree in politics, philosophy and economics. He then went on to do an MBA at Stanford in the USA, and marrying into a billionaire family and becoming a hedge fund manager and investment banker. Although he's probably most famous for having a wife who was a non-domiciled UK resident, meaning she paid no tax here until recently. And he's also famous for holding a green card that implied he was a permanent USA resident, while at the same time holding the second most powerful office of state in the UK. And yet he claims to be patriotic. Both Sunak and Truss back the government's Rwanda people trafficking scheme, despite increases in cross-channel migration since its establishment. They both ascribe to austerity economics as a political choice, and neither have so much as mentioned increased funding for the NHS, for social care, for the crumbling justice system, nor have they mentioned ending government subsidies for the fossil fuel, meat, dairy and other industries contributing to global heating. Truth is, whether it's Sunak, who lives in a different world to most of us, or Truss, living on a completely different planet, these two have far more in common than they have differences. There's perhaps a slightly greater threat to the country from Truss up to the next election, but a slightly greater threat that Sunak could win that next election. So make your own mind up. But for me, the driver may change, but the Tory bus remains pretty much the same.